There is a Solution for That is sponsored by VARC Solutions. VARC Solutions helps small businesses succeed by delivering expert QuickBooks bookkeeping, consulting, quick-base development, and integrated solutions. If you own a small to medium-sized business that uses QuickBooks or QuickBase, the experts at VARC Solutions can help. In business since 1999, with people who care and the knowledge and experience to solve your toughest problems. Visit VARCsolutions.com for all your QuickBooks needs. Welcome back to another edition of There's a Solution for That, where we help small businesses succeed by discussing challenging business problems and best-in-class solutions. Hey everybody, welcome back to this week's episode of There's a Solution for That. We have an interesting guest today, and when I say interesting, that's some people think, is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's actually a really good thing. We've got David Needham on the show today, and he is with ERO Consulting, and that's just one of several things that he does, and that's part of what we're going to be talking about is how do you leverage your time and money through your business especially when you're not maybe just doing one thing, but you've got your hands in lots of different things. So before we get into the content, David, let me just kind of introduce you and let you tell the audience a little bit about you and what you're doing.
Sounds good. Brad, thank you for having me on. So my name is David Needham. I am a full-time firefighter. I own 2 CrossFit gyms. I own a business consulting company called ERO Consulting. I am the vice president of a nonprofit, soon to be on a board of another nonprofit, and then I help out with the adaptive CrossFit games.
Okay, well, we're going to get right into it, and let's dive into the first thing that maybe on everybody's mind is like, are you crazy? It's like CrossFit, firefighter, consultant. I mean, seriously, it's like you don't have enough time on your hands apparently. So tell us about how you got into those different things and the different roles that you're playing there.
Yeah, so most of the things have kind of just stacked on each other as I've gotten deeper into the things that I've done. So moved to North Carolina, got a job with the fire department, loved it. Fire department gives you a lot of spare time. I was coaching at a CrossFit gym. The owners of that gym bought a gym and added me into the ownership group. And they were like, hey, we can't pay you a full-time head coach salary, so we'll give you some ownership and equity into it. A couple of years later, they offered me the gym. I didn't know much about business, so I had a partner. A few years later, I got offered the opportunity in the second location. When I did that, it was with a different partner. And my original partner said, all right, well, it's time for you to go on your own. Bought him out, bought into the second gym. Didn't really know much about business, but now like it was all thrown on my shoulders. So I took the time, spent every waking hour learning everything I could about business and taxes and what to do to like kind of smooth and clean things up. And that led me into the consulting aspect of what I do now, where people have now asked me for advice so much. And because I've been like, I don't have time, they'll be like, oh, I'll pay for your time. I was like, oh, business idea. And so I started another business that led me into helping out with like the adaptive CrossFit games. It's just a volunteer because it's really cool to give back to these athletes. And now I have a different role with that company now I do a lot of their contracts.
Wow, that's fascinating. Well, one of the things that I think is interesting and unique about what you're doing is I know a lot of people who have tried a lot of different things, many of which were unsuccessful, right? But you're kind of in a different camp there. It's like you're successful at firefighting. You're successful running multiple CrossFit gyms. You're successful at doing the consulting. And so what do you think? I mean, if you just had to reflect a little bit, what would you say is your secret sauce, your magic formula that helps you be successful in these different roles where other people try and fail?
I would say I have 3 major things that if you want to get into the business world or anything that has to do with multiple things, first one is time management. One of the things that I do all the time is I write stuff down in a journal. So I keep like a little journal and I write down my daily task in there. That's from like wake up to coffee with my wife to when to have breakfast to every meeting of the day and what I want to accomplish. So it helps me keep on track, keeps me focused on what I'm doing for the day. So that way I have like, the 1% better rule every day. That thing keeps me on track the most on what I need to accomplish because my mind will jump from one thing to another, obviously, with a lot of things that I do. So it keeps me organized there. Second thing is to ask questions. Something I made a mistake on very early in my career with firefighting and business actually was not asking enough questions and kind of to the people that were mentors at the time or could have been mentors was asking a bunch of questions whether they're dumb or not. It's just something you don't know what you don't know. So getting into what you don't know is asking the people that have been there, done that, probably made a few mistakes along the way. And then the third is empowering your employees. So giving your employees as much as you can to make them as good as you can so that you don't have to be around all the time, but they are making your business successful. They are driving the business and then obviously rewarding them at the end. But empowering your people to kind of take ownership of what the business is and making it their own, essentially.
Okay, well, there are so many questions I've got. I mean, and that just in that short span, there's so many questions. So you mentioned time management and really kind of like having a daily plan. You mentioned empowering your team, and what was the one in the middle there? The second,
Uh, Ask questions.
asking questions. Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. So I'm going to ask you a question related to that, which is, one of the things that I feel like I've experienced too as a business owner, and I'm curious if you've seen this in your own roles, and that's okay. So you're not always around, right? Because I mean, part of the time you're firefighting, and part of the time you're working at CrossFit, and so especially when you've got multiple locations, and so even though you've empowered your people to go do things and keep things moving without you having to be there all the time. Do you ever get the sense or do you ever get the feedback like people are like, hey, I wish you were around more, wanting to connect with you more and wanting more of your leadership or mentorship? What's been your experience with that?
I will say that having the second location, and at one point I did have a third location. That location did not do well, so we ended up liquidating it. But it is a struggle, and you have to make specific time to get into people and to be there and to show up. So when I'm firefighting, I try to be as present as possible. When everybody's got downtime, I have downtime, but when you're there, it's be as present as you can in the moment. At the gyms, I try to spend time at each location. I try to make the people that are there every day the more upfront face of the gym. And then I just go, oh, I'm just back here helping. Like they actually did all this. So it empowers the full-time people or my business partners that run the day-to-day stuff to really be the face. And then they get a secondary of me because I can't be everywhere at once.
Yeah, no, I get it. Well, so that's yeah, I imagine you're shuffling around and you're moving around. I think you said you're married too. Do you have kids?
I am married, no kids yet, but maybe the potential in the next year or two.
Okay, so when you have kids, it's going to get harder. I mean, let me just tell you that from experience. I've got three that are about out of the house now, so I've been there, done that, and gone through the whole thing. But I think one of the challenges, as I mean, not just a married man, I mean, any married person that's owning and running a business, you probably have encountered that too. So it's like not only do you have your three or plus day jobs. You've also got a spouse that probably wants to spend time with you too, right?
True, true. Yeah. So one of the things that my wife and I do is we make a priority once a week we have a date night. Non-negotiable. We're doing something, whether it's at home, watching some really bad horror movie, which is my wife's specialty, or going out, having dinner. We spend one night a week where we just connect. She also does work for me, so we get to spend a lot of time. She's the head coach and GM of one of my gyms. So we do get to spend time there. It's where my primary office is. So
Okay.
if I'm ever on Zoom calls or anything, I work from that office. So we get to hang out there too. But I do think she likes that I disappear for 24 hours at the fire department because, absence makes the heart grow fonder, right?
Sometimes it does. Sometimes it does. I'm gonna have to have a set. I'm gonna have to have you on a separate podcast because um, I keep running into people who work with their spouse at some level. My wife works with me as well, so I get it. But and I know a lot of other people that work with their spouses, and I know this is kind of off script, and apologies for people that are listening, but hopefully this will be a fascinating conversation too. But I want to have a separate topic to talk about, to talk with folks that work with their spouses, because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I think there's probably some interesting nuggets of wisdom that we can learn from each other and share. So, anyways, we'll come back to that on a future topic. But I think it. Thanks for bringing up that you do work with your spouse, and that's kind of cool, especially when it works. So kind of getting back on topic a little bit, tell me a little bit more. So you're doing those multiple roles. What are those roles? Which of those roles maybe do you like the most, and what is it that has drawn you to those things? Because they're a little bit different, right?
Yes, sort of yes and no. So the firefighting role is something completely different. I'm the low man on the totem pole. I get to do all the grunt work. If you see the guys that are in the action, that is me holding the fire hose, spraying down water in the house. That's me cutting people out of cars. Like that's my role on the truck. It's a very low man, I don't want to say low man job, but it's a very like physical labor job. When
Right.
I leave there, I'm now the top of the food chain to where I have to make all the decisions or impactful decisions, right? With help. But it's like ultimately like I have to be the one that makes the decision. So in the other roles that I do, they're more back-end admin as I've gotten deeper into owning businesses. So I used to do the front where I was the head coach and I coached a bunch of classes and I saw everybody. Now I'm kind of like they call it a gym mayor, where I like get to go like liaison with the people, and then I go in the background and I do all the back end business stuff that nobody sees, that most people don't like to do. That's what progressed me into the consulting business was that when we talk to business owners, we're like, well, why did you get into owning a business? And they're like, oh my God, I fell in love with helping people and doing the sales or doing the front end side of it. And it's like, they're like, I just hate the back end side. I don't
Hmm.
want to do numbers. I don't want to do this and that. I just want someone to say, hey, here's what you upcharge. Here's how you pay your bills. Here's what taxes go. Here's what the strategy for taxes. And that's where like the consulting business comes in. So it's what I personally fall in love with is the back end side of the business, the money management, the building the infrastructure, the things that people don't see that make the wheels turn that most people don't like to do.
Well, and you're not alone, right? It's like the business owners that I know and have met over my career, it's the same story, right? The roofer that loves to roof, the fence maker that loves to just go build fences, and they love just literally knocking on doors and talking to people, right?
Right.
That's a different animal than somebody wants to sit in the back office and analyze stuff, right? And crunch numbers. And so like one of the things that I really love about our business and what we do is I love leading a team and being able to work with people and help grow them as people, and employees, but just like help them develop their professional skills. I love that part, and I love marketing, right? I love just the whole concept of connecting with people, understanding what your customers want and like how to serve them better, and all this, the marketing side for me is fascinating. So I can see how those different elements kind of play in there. But so let's talk about how do you do this and make it work. So like I want to just go a little bit deeper on your time management thing. So you've got a daily practice, which is great. Tell us a little bit more about that, and how do you manage all those balls that are in the air all the time?
Yeah, so I grew up in an era where ADHD was a thing but undiagnosed. And my mom, love her to death, but she was like, "Oh, you focus on things that you really love." And my brain would be scattered, and I always had this, so I needed something to hone me in onto. I get this task done, and I get a reward, and I get a task done, and I get a reward. And for me, what I have found is that writing stuff down reassures it in my brain of this is what I've got to take care of tomorrow and gives me an order and process. And also, when I get off topic, which happens quite a bit, I look back and I go, "Oh crap, I need to get this, this, and this done today." And I I listened to a guy a long time ago, Andy Frischella from First Form. He had a win the day, and it was basically on your task list. Try to get. He had 5 things. It was get your 5 things done on your task list, and mine is try to get 90% of my task list done because mine's a whole page long. But I'll write in there and try to like schedule out my day based upon task. And then when I get one done, I cross it off and I'm like, poof, done, crushed it, And for
Right.
me, that gives me the reassurance of like, all right, I'm making the right moves. Let me move forward in the things that I have. I use a timer as well when I sit at a desk. Every 30 minutes, I get up, I go walk around, I go do something to refresh my coffee, refresh my water, just to get back. Then I come back, set another timer, get back to work. Those are kind of the processes. For my journaling, I try to do it the night before. And so I'll sit in bed, I put down my cell phone, blue light before bed. I put my cell phone down, I write in my journal, and I go, okay, these are the things that I know I need to accomplish. Sometimes during the day, I'll write out the next couple days. I'll just add stuff into dates that I have pre-written. So I kind of know what is a task that needs to get done that may not be a priority for the day when it comes up.
Okay, so there's so much stuff in there that is good. So the taking a break every 30 minutes, that's like what the Pomodoro technique, I think is what it's called. So you're doing some scheduled work, non-work, work, non-work type of structure to it,
Yeah.
which
I used to do 30 minutes and then I would do like 20 push-ups and like 10 side raises and then I get back to work and then another 30 minutes I go back, I'd hit 20 more push-ups. On days that like I wasn't going to work out, but I didn't have
yeah.
the time to, I'd be like, "Oh, let me just do this for 4 hours of work." And then it's like, "Oh, now I've done 200 push-ups and, gotten a little bit of a workout in."
No, those are great. Those are great. Atomic Habits talked about habit stacking, right? And I think there's some components there too. Like, but it sounds like you also use that as kind of a reward too. So I'm getting some stuff done. I'm crossing some stuff off.
Mhm.
You're habit stacking with some push-ups, which again is fantastic because most people just in any given day they have so much capacity that just gets wasted, right? you
Yep.
know you do have those dead times where you could be, instead of daydreaming for 5 minutes, you're banging out 20 push-ups, right? And you're developing a long-term, physical, physique that, people could have achieved at the same time, but they just chose not to, or just
Now,
wasn't on their radar.
Now, sometimes it's not always that. Sometimes it's play a phone game for 5 minutes, right?
Okay.
So it's not always the push-ups and such. But yeah, so it is habit stacking is kind of the key that I have.
Well, but let's talk about it. So I think the key there, just want to see if you what your thoughts on this. The key there is having a goal, right? It's like
Mhm.
you never would have done any push-ups if you didn't have a goal to like do more push-ups or build more upper body strength, right? So you had to have some intention behind that,
Mhm.
right? So is that part of your journaling process too? Is like, what's important to me and what
Uh,
I need to focus on?
that's more when I do like long-term goals and short-term goals. I
Yeah.
actually the thing that I really wanted was really big shoulders. Like almost like where the shoulders they look like bowling balls on the side.
Yeah.
So I would like my push-ups were like warm up my shoulders, and then I would do this thing called Lou raises, which is you basically look like you're a bat, like flapping your wings all the way up and back.
Uh-huh.
It takes really good care of your shoulders. It's really hard to do. But I was like, oh, well, if I just do this a bunch, I'll get big shoulders and that'll be my break from working out. Then I can like wipe my brain clear a little bit of like what I just focused on. So it's really for me, it's kind of more of to like pull myself away from sitting down and feeling like, oh, I've done nothing but work for 8 hours. I'm so
Yeah.
bored of this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of get in those zones, and I think there's probably some people that are like me. You know, you get in that zone where you kind of find yourself 4 hours in, not necessarily exhausted because you're just so into it, right? You're in that zone. But I do recommend and encourage people to take breaks, especially when it's getting to a little more of that burnout phase where it's like, you feel like you don't have a choice, right? You have to keep working for 8 straight hours or 10 or 12 straight hours because you got so much work on your plate. But it's not always healthy long term to do that. Um, Type of thing. So, but so here's my question for you. I want to get some free consulting advice out of this.
Yeah.
So one of the challenges that I have is, I put stuff on my calendar, so I don't journal quite as much. I put things on my calendar, but what I find is I'm also moving stuff from today to tomorrow. And then the next day, I can't get it all done. So I feel like I'm just constantly moving stuff to tomorrow. So, how have you battled, that type of thing?
If I have to move stuff from one day to another, it becomes the first thing that I take care of.
Mm,
And that's the way that, because I'm most of the time, sometimes I put unrealistic things on there, like I have to write a contract and I've got to do, 3 hours of, money management and stuff on a company. And I know that that's going to take, 6 of the 8 hour workday that I want to work. And so I know I'm probably not going to get done, but I'll get like half of it done. So I put it early in the next day. So I know it's the first thing that I'm going to take care of. And then I try to play, I don't want to say play a game, but I try to like pick a fun thing of like, all right, I'm going to listen to this soundtrack on YouTube that is ambient music, and I'm going to get it done by the time this ambient music's done. But I move it to the first thing of the day. And that's really the thing that has moved the needle for me is like, all right, it wasn't successful this day. Next day, it's the first thing. And then it's like, all right, whew, completed it. Now I can move on.
okay. Well, apparently my problem is filling my entire week before I start and then finding I don't have time for without moving everything. I don't have time I don't have enough margin in my schedule to be able to put something tomorrow morning. So obviously got some lessons and some work there to do. So let's talk a little bit more. So like you're doing these multiple things. You've figured out pretty well. It sounds like just time management in general, and it's like how to journal and focus on what you need to do to win the day. Um, how do you like when you're thinking of like these new things? Because I'm sure you're not done, right? To me, it feels like you've always got something on the horizon, right? It's like you've got this next thing that you want to get your hands into. So how do you evaluate those types of opportunities in light of what you're already doing and what you're already, getting out of those things? And so tell me more about that.
So I have made some mistakes in business where I've stretched too far, too fast, and realizing that, accepting that fault and letting the thing go was something that has not always come easy for me, but it's something that I have done as I don't want to say matured, but as I've gotten a little bit more mature in business. So for a while, I was trying to do a fitness podcast, didn't really take off as well as I wanted to. So yeah, I was like, all right, it doesn't make me money. I need to focus on the things that do make me money.
Right.
And my goal is to maximize the thing that I have and then spend, if I want to do something else, a little bit of time planning that next thing. And so for me, like the next things that I really want is like owning the buildings or the real estate that I'm in with my gyms. And so I try to like find the strategies of like, okay, how can I buy this thing from this guy and save him the most money in capital gains and taxes? And so I come up I learn some stuff online, I build a strategy, then I ask somebody that's way smarter than me.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So not just lurching in or just jumping into the next thing that is maybe a shiny object in front of you. Sounds like you're a lot more methodical about it, a lot more planned, a lot more meticulous is kind of the word that's coming to my mind. And still going back to your core concept, when you don't know what to do or how to do it, you ask a lot of people.
Yep. And I ask people that are the specialist or the professional in that field. And I say, hey, look, joking around, right? Hey, I watched 400 TikToks and here's the information that I gathered from the TikTok. What's real about this? What's not? And in the cool feature is that in the CrossFit gym, everybody's a real professional in something. You just have to kind of know what they do, whether it's real estate, property management, CPA, lawyer. And then you can like, hey, after workout, I got a question. Maybe this solves it. And there's a cool lady at my gym that is a badass CPA and does taxes. And I was like, all right, how about this strategy to buy this building? And she's like, that won't work. And I'm like, okay. How about this strategy? And she's like, that also won't work. And then I was like, how about this strategy? She was like, we're getting closer. And I was like, perfect. So I keep building these things of like, what's my eventual long-term goal? It's to build the assets that I do have as great as they can be with me doing as least amount, but making the people in them as great as possible.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. I've got a follow-up question, but the one that comes to me first is like based on that experience, it sounds like it would be more efficient to be able to go to that CPA that you're talking about and just go, hey, I would like to buy this building. What are some strategies that you think would work? Versus
True.
coming up with options and then going, oh well, yeah, that won't work.
Well, I like to think of it's a challenge, right? And I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy learning new stuff. So I do a lot of this research, you would say, or listen to people that are experts in fields in the morning. I have a morning routine that I do. But then I like get my notes and then I found some stuff that I go to like my CPA with and I'm like, hey, here's the things that I want to do. And he's like, okay, here's how you do them. Here's how you implement them, you know, great job on finding this because everybody in their own right is busy, right? So if I can come to you with, here's all the pieces to the puzzle, help me connect them, it's much easier for that person to spend 2 minutes helping me connect them than it is for them to build their own strategies for me.
Got it. Got it. I guess unless that's what they do all day long is
Right.
do that thing, so like if you've got if you're trying to figure out how to get the best healthcare coverage, there's probably people out there that can solve that pretty fast, right? That's their business, that's their expertise. But no, I get it. That plus it sounds like, I mean, there's for you, it seems like there's value in the journey, right?
Mhm.
You value the process of figuring stuff out versus getting the quick fix, quick answer maybe that may or may not be a good fit for you.
Well, it now has helped me in my consulting to where if people ask me a question, I'm generally knowledgeable about most things, or I know enough to be dangerous to go ask the right people for help.
Yeah.
There's some things that I just absolutely don't do. And those I'm like, hey, this is who I use them. They will 100% treat you right. Here's the steps that I do when I use them. And then that person can go to, well, for you guys, for instance, right?
Right.
This is how I do my bookkeeping. Tell them you want your books very similar to this. And then they go to you guys and they're like, hey, this is what I want. Look at David's, make mine similar to it with a couple tweaks. And that's where like it's super nice to have people in your corner like you guys for
Yeah.
QuickBooks purposes, where I'm like, I'm not an expert on it. Here's the problem. Is there a solution?
That's fantastic. And so it sounds like you've really learned to one, be an expert, or have enough knowledge and experience to be helpful to other people, but also realizing when one, you don't have expertise in some areas that maybe you don't want to spend time in. It's like, I mean, we can't do everything. It's like we can't do everything well, we can't do everything with passion, and we can't do everything like with a certain level of minimal expertise, if you will. So,
Yeah.
how do you find these people? Like, how do you find the folks that you lean on to help you build a strategy or to help inform how you do things? How do you like? You just like you're hanging out in the gym and you're like, oh, what do you do? And I mean, is that how you do it? Like, how do you build that network of
That
support?
that's how some of it has come about. Some of it is asking some of my other business friends when I was earlier on in the business, like, hey, who do you use for a CPA? And they're like, oh, I use such and such. He also does CrossFit, so you should go talk to him. And, also here's his personal cell phone number, which is probably not what you should do, right? But then I go meet with them, figure out if we have a connection, figure out if the things that I'm interested in, he can truly help me with, or if we live on a plane, right? And a lot of people, you may meet them, they talk about something, and you're like, I don't think we're going to connect. You're just not the right vibe for me. Let me go find somebody else. And so that's really, it's helped a lot in the gym because you get to know people and they're experts in their field, but they might not be exactly, but they know somebody. So you're only 1 degree separation away from like getting the thing that you want if you ask the question.
But you got to ask, right? You've got to
Got to
take the
ask.
risk at least at a minimum to say, hey, this is something I'm trying to figure out. What are your thoughts, right?
Mhm.
Interesting.
And
Well, so
be open to their feedback. Most people like they're not open because they have this massive ego because they run a big company or they've achieved all these things to like get help in a smaller area that they really want to be successful in. And we see it a lot in the gym. The guy that comes in that used to be a D1 athlete that is 20 pounds overweight and he's 45, and you're like, hey, we need you to just take this slow. And you'll get the success, if not better, if you do. And they're like, no, I can lift 200 pounds over my head. And you're just like, okay, when you hurt yourself, like I already warned you. So that is one thing that, you got to pull your ego out of it and be like, somebody out there is always going to be smarter than you. Ask enough questions and get to know their specialty because they may help you later on and you don't even know it.
all right, so I'm gonna focus the attention on the people that are listening or watching right now. So I'm not even talking to you, David. I'm talking to the people that are listening right now. One of the things that I'm hearing pretty consistently is having a desire to learn, right? A willingness to reach out and basically admit that, hey, I don't have all the answers. I need help. Part of what you just said was kind of like when you've got that ego that's maybe so big or inflated, if you will, right? That you're not even open to feedback, or even if you heard the feedback, you probably wouldn't even take it, or you wouldn't take the suggestion. So I think I've seen that too in my career in many different elements, not just in myself, because I mean I've got an ego too, but I've seen it with different leaders, right? And it seems to me that like one of the biggest challenges as an owner or a leader of any business is admitting when you don't know everything, and admitting that you're fallible, and admitting that sometimes you need help, right? And so for the folks that are listening, I mean, I think the encouragement that I would have for each of you is take David's advice here. It's like sometimes to be a better owner, to be a better leader, you have to really take an inventory of yourself and acknowledge that maybe you do need some help, right? Maybe you do. It's okay to lean on other people when they are experts at something, or they've got life experiences that can help inform you of and maybe do something better. It's like, not only you may be already really really good at what you do, okay, and let's admit that a lot of us at the senior levels are really really good at something, but it doesn't mean we're perfect, right? There are other things that we can learn from.
And you might not be good at everything. You might just be good at one thing. We talked earlier that you were like, oh, I love marketing and it interests me. Well, that's perfect. That's one aspect of like the business. So on the things that you don't know, right? You'd be like, look, I crush marketing, right? That's my thing. That's my jam. I'm interested in it. You know all the stuff about it. But then when it comes to something else that you're not as great at, just asking for help. People want to help. It's in their nature to help. And when you say, hey, look, I need help, people will jump at the opportunity to help you. And especially if you sit in a higher position, because then they feel like they're adding value to your life.
I love it. I love it. One of the is, especially as somebody who's getting into coaching and consulting, one of my favorite books of all time is Marshall Goldsmith. He wrote a book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And it's like one of the underlying themes in that book that is so fascinating to me it's like there's this performance paradigm where, if you've been incredibly successful, you think that it's because of everything you've done that's made you successful. And so if you have to keep doing those things. And I know this, maybe I'm not saying this as clearly as I want to, but one of the challenges is let's say to get where you've gotten, you've also been kind of a jerk. You haven't really been that nice to be around and work with, and maybe you do have this very very large ego, which is you know disruptive to a lot of people around you. But because you've been successful, you think that's part of your success um, uh, formula, right? And so you keep doing those things which are disruptive and turn people off and maybe cause a lot of division within your organization. But you just have this thing in your head that you've got to keep doing that because that's part of what made you successful. And so long way of getting around to the summary there. But what got you here won't get you there. It's like sometimes you get to a certain level in your organization or in your career, and you have to turn off certain parts of what you've been doing to get to the next level. And yeah, that could be, hey, I'm really really good at marketing, but I'm not good at people, right? So I need to get better at people management. Or maybe I'm everybody's best friend and everybody loves me, but I can't operate my way out of a box, right? It's like, so I think what you're saying is really really valid.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wrote that down because I'm interested to read it now.
Oh, it's a great book. Marshall Goldsmith, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Anybody who's in a leadership role, senior leader, owner, oh, I mean, it's a gold mine in terms of like how to truly get to the next level within how you run or how you operate. And so, yeah, it's fantastic.
And I would agree with you on that. I can't say that in my 9 years of owning and running a business that I have been a pleasure to work with, or the best communicator, or anything along the lines of like the leader that you want. I think I've evolved into something a little bit better. I wouldn't say great, but I mean, you also, I think, need to have a little bit of an ego for yourself that stems in confidence, right? And you're confident enough that like you can make mistakes and people will still value your opinion and view you as a leader.
Yep.
Different ego than I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread ego, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and one of the things you mentioned was like asking for help, and that's actually, I think that's what made me remember that book, is because one of the strategies within the book that he wrote was talking about, he does 360-degree feedback reviews, and one of the things he advises his executive clients to do, right, is when he's done a 360 feedback and one of the responses comes back that says, you're really really bad at affirming other people, you're really really bad at encouraging, like it's like if you're going to talk to somebody, they're going to feel deflated afterwards, and so that there's just really a problem that needs to be solved. And one of the things he talks about doing is when you've had that realization, that aha moment, like, okay, this is an area that's really holding me and my company back, is you have to go to your people and ask them for help.
Yeah.
You have to actually say, I'm working on this, I realize it's a problem, I'm really really working on this, but frankly I can't do it by myself, I need your help to help me be aware when I'm doing this, or help me be more effective in this area that I'm really really crappy at. So yeah.
I totally agree with you on that. That goes into the empowering your team,
Yeah.
right? The more you empower your team that they feel more on an equal level to you, I mean, we'll make them work harder, we'll make them contribute more, and we'll make them like give you honest feedback. That is one of the things that I strive at our gym is in our culture is feedback, right? And I should be able to come up to you and tell you the good things and the bad things because all I want you to do is look cooler, be better, and be more efficient, right?
Yep.
And that's kind of what we strive for in most of the things that we do.
Perfect. Well, let's shift gears in the conversation just a little bit. Let's go back to a little bit on, you as a person running multiple business, and I've got to imagine as you've gotten involved in different businesses, um, you've probably learned a few lessons about what you value, right? So, tell us about that. It's like there's time, there's money, there's freedom, there's all these different reasons why people get into business. And so, what have you learned about yourself in terms of what you value?
When I originally got into business, I thought it was going to be the things that I wanted was money and ownership or power, right? And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I'm going to tell people I own this thing and I'm going to make all this money. And what I've realized is that the things that you do give you freedom, and freedom to me is time. And so I value time above everything else. My time is incredibly valuable. And for me, like I'm learning as I get older, right? Like we're going to have kids, and I know that I'm going to want to do everything possible with those kids for those kids and spend the time doing that. So I know that I have to get buttoned up in other areas to make sure that I have the time. One of the things that I've done over the last year was take every Saturday off work from the fire department. And basically, you can trade time with somebody. They need a day, I'll take a day, and we'll flop days. And so, because me and my wife, we work at the gym, 5 days a week. So, Saturdays is a light day, and then we would have the rest of Saturday together. But for me, if I work Saturday, that means that like Friday night, we can't hang out as late. I go in Saturday, I get off Sunday morning. I might be sleepy all day. So, it kind of ruined the free time that she had for us to spend together. And so I was simply like, I'm gonna change time with people in order to get Friday night together for date night. If we do date night, then Saturday, maybe we work out together and spend Saturday afternoon together. And then we can wake up Sunday morning, have Sunday morning coffee together, right? And just be able to spend more time. So for me, the value is you make the money to give you the freedom to have more time.
Well, that's really impressive, and I love that. So yeah, because especially when when you're involved in pardon me, so many different things, um, one response to that is just to keep working more and more and more,
Mm.
longer and longer and longer until your head explodes, and then it probably is going to come out really really bad, relationally and everything else. Um, so it makes a lot of sense to at the end of the day get down to it is about the quality of your time, the quality of the time that you get to spend with your spouse. Those are, at the end of the day, what is more important? Yeah, you can have a pile of money and no friends and no and no relationships because you're just working all the time,
Mhm.
or you can try to have a little bit of a balance there. So I know that when I was earlier in my career, like I said, my kids are, my adult children at this point, that are, 20 and up, and almost some of which out of the house. So I guess this is about 17 years ago. Yeah, about 17 years ago, that's when I kind of had my big wake up call because I was trying to grow in my career. I was working all the time. I was traveling all the time. And I've got these 3-year-old kids at home. And that was when I first kind of had that big, oh, I guess the time that I'm spending with my wife and kids is really more important than, bringing home the paycheck and the money that was great, but there's no substitute for the time that you get to spend with your family and spending time with friends. So yeah, I think those are fantastic lessons. So thank you for sharing those.
So now I don't think that there's a real thing like work-life balance. Let me also throw that out there, is that if you really want something, you can work hard enough to achieve anything that you want in this day and age. There are a bunch of tools that make things easier. AI makes things really easy for a lot of things. I would also say that if you own a business and there's an aspect of it that you do not want to do, hire out. Pay somebody to do the thing that you don't want to do to get time back. You will make more money in the long run. Me personally, I like books and I like the money management of things. However, I don't do my own QuickBooks. We use you guys.
Right.
You guys save me a ton of time in doing that. And it's well worth the money that I pay to have that done for me when I can go back in there, look at it. Oh, okay, it's cool. Send a couple of emails. Thanks. Talk to you next month, right? And that for me is like the paying somebody to do a thing for you so you can get time back in a business is wildly important.
I love it. So basically, using your money to get more time because you've decided that the time is more important than that money that you could be holding on to, but at the same time, you know, spinning your wheels more on the time side. So I think it's you've got to figure out what you value, right? And some people that value money more than they value their time would probably make a different decision. So totally get it. Well, we're gonna have probably a whole nother podcast topic on digging into more of the money management side, because I know there's some things that you're doing that are kind of special, but maybe give us a little bit of a teaser, if you will, on the money management side. Like, time is important,
Mhm.
but what are you doing at a thin level in terms of like how you manage money, and how does that play into what you do?
So money is in a business is all about organizing it. And let me use like your closet as a reference. If you go into putting your clothes away, you put shirts with shirts, you put pants with pants, you put shoes with shoes, you have sock drawer, you have your spots for everything. Money management is the same thing. You need to know what you spend, what you allocate money to, and where to put it. And then you let it stack. And what I mean by that is like if I know that my payroll monthly is $20,000, the money that I make when it comes in, I should know what percentage gets me about to that $20,000 mark or more. And then I allocate that money to that specific spot. However you want to do it, there's a lot of different ways. I have a couple of recommendations, but however you want to allocate that money in there, because if you have a big month, you may be putting like $22,000 in that spot where you only need 20. And now you kind of have a slush that like keeps you above board. And it's just in a spot that like you don't have to touch. This is only for payroll. And so you don't have to worry about things. The other little thing that I do is I try to be a month ahead, a minimum of a month ahead.
Okay, so like if you know that your monthly payroll, or weekly payroll, depending on how you're doing it, if you know that next month you're going to need 20,000, you want to have 20,000 in the bank today
Mhm.
in preparation for that. Because yeah, we all have shortfalls, we all have cyclical times, we all have these weeks where our entire staff is sick, and those types of things where it is less predictable, right? What your revenue is gonna be. It's a little bit less predictable what your expenses are gonna be. But if you've pocketed money away in these different categories that you're talking about, um, payroll, bonuses, profit,
Right.
savings for taxes,
Yep.
different things like that, you can probably, I imagine, you can sleep a little bit better at night that you've got the money already, even if the next 30 days is crap.
Yeah, and I like to do it based upon percentages. It's how I manage my personal money. It's how I manage the businesses that I own, and it's a percentage that way. I know for let's call it payroll, right? If I've been banking, two, three, four, five, six, $10,000 more than my payroll allowance is, well, I know at the end of the year, look at this overage we got. Now I've got money for bonuses, right? And here's how we're going to allocate money for bonuses because the team did better based upon the percentage that I had for them. And then all of a sudden now it's like, all right, now we got all this money for bonuses. So like it's an easy outlet to look into one funnel and to know this is what I've got for this.
Okay, fantastic. Well, like I said, we're going to have you on another time, and we're going to go a lot deeper on the money and management side, because I know you've got not just the concepts, but you've got a process that you go through, and that didn't come out of thin air, right? I know you've you've thought about it, you've researched it, you've talked to people about it. So we're going to have a little bit more conversation on that at another time. But as we kind of conclude this topic where we're talking about leveraging your time and really at the same time focusing on what's important to you. Any last thoughts or thoughts just from the conversation we've had? Tips to the audience.
The biggest tip I have is take care of your people, and your people will take care of you.
Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. Well, David, thanks again for being on the show. Really appreciate you.
Of course. Thank you, Brad, for having me. And I'm always happy to come back and talk about any topic you want.
Very cool. And so for those of you that are listening, I hope this was helpful. We try to be real on this show and really, let the guard down and be vulnerable and talk about some areas that we're maybe not the best at. So I hope that those of you that are listening have gotten something out of this, so that when you hit the stop button on the show, you can kind of sit back and reflect, and maybe like David does, do some journaling about what you want to accomplish this next day, but also reflecting on like really truly what's important and why are you doing this, right? Why are you owning a business? Why are you trying to lead a business? So that you're not just grinding away every day, but hopefully doing something with purpose that's leading to a more happiness, a lot more purpose-driven sort of life. So for those of you that are listening, again, I hope this was helpful, and keep liking, subscribing, and really sharing this with other folks. And we'll see you next time.
There is a Solution for That is produced by VARC Solutions. This episode was produced by Ashley White and Aaron Riley. You can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Watch the video version on youtube.com/theresaSolutionforThat. Or visit varcsolutions.com/podcast, where you'll find our entire podcast archive, as well as show notes, links to solution providers, and complete transcripts of every episode. If you love the podcast, please leave a review with your comments.